Teachers of Reddit, what is the most disturbing thing you've heard a student say? I once had a pioneer student who said he couldn't practice at home because his stepfather would beat him to have to listen to. A kid missed his bus home and had an absolute meltdown. Eventually it came out that his dad told him that if he missed the bus again, he'd hold his head underwater even longer this time. I had a student under 10 tell me he wanted to cut my head off and watch me bleed. I had the audacity to tell him that he needed to put his crayons up before he could get his play duck out dog. My mum's a teacher, and she says there was a student that used to make these little paper drug packets, and he didn't even know what they were. She says that the mother was a drug dealer and would make him make them all day long if he wasn't in school. Safe to say the police were involved after certain things happened, like her never turning up to the school to collect him one night and other stuff. Pretty weird how a child was making literal drug packets and had no idea. He was just proud of them because that was the only thing he was taught how to do at home. I was teaching a high school jewelry metal shop class, and some students alerted me to one student trying to sneak out some of the metal files. When confronted, he said he wanted to use them to stab people in the halls. I had him removed permanently, to say the least. Was an aide in a guidance office. The most disturbing was a kid we'll call. He had severe social adjustment issues and tended to say things that creeped people out. One day, he comes in wanting to talk to a counsellor. I was playing receptionist that day and told him I'd let them know and asked what was up. He very blankly says, I tried to walk out into traffic yesterday. This was obviously alarming, so I brought him straight to one of their offices. He repeats what he told me, and this fucking bitch counsellor says, you need to come back later. I'm working on college admissions stuff for other students. He just kind of sighed and left. Had an international college student write a paper about his family, and a big part of it was talking about how he was jealous of his cousin's dog, so he drowned it in the ocean in front of said cousin. When I asked him why, he said he wanted the dog, and if it wasn't his, it didn't deserve to live. I gave the paper to my bosses, and he ultimately got deported for a bunch of violations and red flags. Runners-up a girl explaining she decided to go to college after her best friend was murdered in front of her during a gang turf war. Another girl who tried to explain to the class why torture porn movies like Megan. But both of these two were in the same remedial class. A student once told me he was going to burn his house down. We talked about how that would ruin his house and how he could possibly hurt his mum and dad or himself. His reply was, I'd make sure mum was dead before I burn it down. This kid is 8. This one student once told me, unprompted, I like red cars because that's the colour of calm. Mum used when she left us to do drugs. I heard a student say to another teacher who was pregnant at the time, I hope your baby dies. And the really sad part, she had a miscarriage a few weeks later. It was horrifying.